this week, let's say the last 2 weeks, in other words, the past two Shabbos, we read Parshas Truma and Parshas Tetzaveh, where the Torah records in detail, at length, the Mishkan, the Klei HaMishkan, the Bigdei Kohuna, as the Rebbeinu Shalom was mitzaveh Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Yidden to make a Mishkan and the Kalim and the Bigdei Kohuna. And that goes on into the first third of this week's Parsha, Parshas Ki Sisa. And then we have Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, where the Torah once again repeats all the details of the Mishkan and the Kalim and the Bigdei Kohuna, as Moshe Rabbeinu is telling it to Klal Yisrael. In other words, when Moshe Rabbeinu is Mekayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzivui, to tell it to the Yidden, that appears in Parshas Vayakel Pekudah. Vayakel Moshe es Kol Hadas B'nei Yisrael Vayomer Aleim. And over there, we actually come to the point where the Mishkan is put up, the Kalim are created. So, but in between HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzivui to Moshe Rabbeinu, which appears in Parshas Truma and Tetzaveh and the beginning of Ki Sisa, and Moshe Rabbeinu's relaying HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzivui to Klal Yisrael, which appears in Parshas Vayakel and Pekudei, and the making of the Mishkan that appears in Vayakel and Pekudei, we have the 2/3 of Parshas Ki Sisa that deal with the Chet HaEgel. So how did the Chet HaEgel, the story of the Chet HaEgel, come between HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzivui to Moshe to tell Klal Yisrael to make the Mishkan and Moshe's actual telling Klal Yisrael to make the Mishkan? So you know the Ramban in the beginning of Parshas Vayakel actually holds that that was the way it happens, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell Klal Yisrael to build the Mishkan before the Chet HaEgel. In other words, either at Matan Torah or the 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu was Bahar following Matan Torah, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, but then he came down with the Luchas on Shavasa B'Tammuz, and he broke the Luchas, and then there were 40 days of Tefillah, and then he went back on Rosh Chodesh Elul. He went back onto Har Sinai. So during all this time, he didn't tell Klal Yisrael about putting up the Mishkan, and only when he came down with the Luchos Shnias on Yom Kippur, so Mochras Yom Kippurim, that's when he told Klal Yisrael about the Tzivui, which he already heard long before. The Ramban's Lashon in the beginning of Parshas Vayakel is V'yitocha in Shehoyo Zeh. In other words, the Vayakel was B'yoim Mochras Ridutoi, the day after Yom Kippur. V'amar lekulam. Then he told Klal Yisrael, Inyan HaMishkan asher nitztave boi mitchilo, koidim shibur haluchos. And why did he tell it to them now? Kevon shenisratz Elohem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'nosan loy haluchos shniyos, v'koras imoi bris chadosho, sheyelech Hashem v'kirbo, hine chozar lekadmusom, ula'ahavas kluloisom, ubiyodua sheti yeshchinosoi b'soichom, ki'inyan shetzivei utchilo. Sounds like Moshe Rabbeinu was hesitant after he saw the Chet HaEgel. He wasn't sure that the Shekhinah will continue to dwell in Klal Yisrael, and therefore he didn't tell them about the tzivui of Hakamas HaMishkan until he received the second luchis, and then he knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Nisratz Elohem. And that's why he told them that Tzivui Mochras Yom Kippurim. That's Shitas Ramban, according to which the Seder of Parshas Truma Tetzaveh, Ki Sisa, Vayakel Pekudei, is actually the Seder of how it happened. That first, the Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu about the Mishkan, then there was the Chet HaEgel, and then Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael about the Mishkan. However, Rashi in this week's Parsha disagrees. Rashi on the pasuk Lamed Aleph Yud Ches Vayitein El Moshe Kechaloisoi Ledaber Itoy Bahar Sinai Shnei Luchoi Sa'edus. Rashi says Ein Mukdem U'Mocher B'Torah. It doesn't appear in the Torah in its chronological order. Ma'isa ha'egel koidim letzivui ha'mishkan yomim rabim hoya. Rashi says that the Ma'isa Egel happened before Parshas Truma, before the Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu about the Mishkan. Ma'isa ha'egel koidim letzivui ha'mishkan yomim rabim. Shaharei b'yud zayin b'tamas nishtabru aluchos. U'b'yom ha'kippurim nisratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Yisrael. U'lemachros eschilu b'nidras ha'mishkan. V'hukum b'echad b'nis. Rashi seems to hold that if Moshe Rabbeinu was told earlier, he would have told them earlier. If we see that Moshe Rabbeinu's tzivui to Klal Yisrael was Machras Yom HaKippurim, it must be that on that day, Moshe Rabbeinu was told by the Rebbeinu Shalom to tell the Jews. But even that, according to Rashi, Parshas Truma and Tetzaveh really belong after Parshas Ki Sisa, after the Chet HaEgel. And after Moshe Rabbeinu came down the second time on Yom Kippur, that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu the tzivui on the Mishkan, and Moshe Rabbeinu immediately said it to Klal Yisrael. One thing, however, is clear, that there's a connection between the Mishkan and the Chet HaEgel. Because of this connection, Rashi holds that the entire mitzvah of a Asuli Mikdash V'Shachanti V'Soicham was only given by the Rebbeinu Shalom after the Chet HaEgel. The Ramban, even though he holds that Moshe Rabbeinu was told before the Chet HaEgel, but actually Moshe Rabbeinu said it to Klal Yisrael only after the Chet HaEgel. What's the connection between the Mishkan and the Chet HaEgel? What's the Chet HaEgel? Obviously, we don't know. We're talking about the Dor, Yotzei Mitzrayim. Just a few months before, they experienced the miracles of the Esemakis, Kriyas Yamsuf, Ro'aso Shifcha al Hayam, Masha Loi Ro'o, Yecheskel Ben Buzi. They witnessed the Maimid Har Sinai, Ato Horeso Lodas, Ki Hashem Hu Elokim, Ein Oid Milvadoi. How could it be that such a short time after they make an Egel Hazov, a golden calf, and they say Eile Elehecha Yisro? So it's clear that this is unclear. But nevertheless, I mean, we know that the Torah is not a book of history. It doesn't just record the ancient history for the sake of information. Torah is miloshen hoyra'o. Torah is a lashon of a lesson. So everything in Torah is there in order that we learn a lesson. So there must be a lesson that we can learn from the Chet HaEgel, even though we don't understand much about it. But how could we be learning from the Chet HaEgel? I mean, I mean, it's true that we're not perfect. We have faults, we have shortcomings, but the Chet HaEgel seems very far removed from us mentally and emotionally. How are we connected with the Chet HaEgel? What are we supposed to learn from the Chet HaEgel? And even more so, the pasuk says in this week's parsha, "Ubiyoim pokti ufokadati aleim achatosam." That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that even though now I will not destroy Klal Yisrael, but on a day that I will make an accounting, I will count the Chet HaEgel with the other chatoim. As Rashi says, Ato shomati elecha milechaloisom yachad. Now I listen to you, Moshe Rabbeinu, and I won't destroy them at once. However, v'tomid, always, kishe'efkoid aleihem avoinoisehem, ufakadeti aleihem ma'at mina avoin hazeh, im shar avoinos, ve'ein puronus bo al Yisrael she'ein bo k'tzas mi piron Chet HaEgel. In other words, in every einish that Klal Yisrael gets, b'meshech all doiros, there's always a retribution for the Chet HaEgel. Now, the pasuk says in Parshas Ki Sisa, lo yumsu avois al bonim, ubonim lo yumsu al avois. Ish becheto yumos. So children don't die for the sins of their parents. And even though it says in Parshas Yisro, Poikeid Avoin Ovis Albonim, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that that's only if they're oichzin maase avoiseihem biyadeim, only if the children follow in the wicked ways of their parents, then Poikeid Avoin Ovis Albonim. But if not, if they're not oiches, so loy bonim lo yumsu alovis. So if in every generation there's a piroin for the Chet HaEgel, it must be that in every generation we're considered oichzin maaseh avoiseihem biyadeim. We consider that we're still holding on to the sin of the Egel, but in which way are we holding on to the sin of the Egel? And it is something that it's very difficult to understand. So you know that the Gemara says in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Mem Vov, that at the time of the Chet Eitz Hadas, Yordo Zuham Oloilam, the world became contaminated, defiled, and afterwards, Keshe Omdu Yisrael al Har Sinai, Paska Zuhamasa, that when Yidden stood at Har Sinai to be Mekabel the Torah, that Zuhama was removed. The Pashib Shad the Gemara, that's the end of the story. Since the Maimed Har Sinai, we got rid of the Zuhama of the Eitz Hadas. However, in the Zohar, in several places, it says that even though Yisrael Sha'omdu al Har Sinai Paska Zuhamasan, but nevertheless, when they did the Chet HaEgel, they brought back part of that Zuhama. Mixas Oisa Zuhama. So that obviously tells us that there's a similarity between the Chet HaEgel and the Chet Eitz Hadas. They're similar in some way, and therefore the Chet HaEgel brings back the Zuhama of the Eitz Hadas. So in what way are they similar, besides for the fact that these are two great sins that we have very little understanding of? But in what way are they similar? You know, Chava was seduced by the idea of Vehiyisem Ke'elohim. According to most Mefarshim, Vehiyisem Ke'elohim means we should be like angels. We should be like malachim. What's so terrible about wanting to be a malach? It's a worthy aspiration. I mean, it's a quest for greatness. What could be wrong with that? In the Parsha of Tzitzis, we say, L'man tizkiru v'asisem es kol mitzvoisoi v'hiyisem kedoshim leiloi keichem. The Targum Yonis ben Azil says, v'tehevoin kadishin hey kim malachayo demishamshin kodam Hashem aloi kochen. You should be holy as angels. So, obviously, we should be striving for that madrega of being angels. That's really what we're heading for. So how did it happen that through this want of the Vehiyisem Ke'elohim, I mean, that was the beginning of that was the downfall of humankind. Why was it that the Nachash was the one that was Mafate Chava with the pitui of Vehiyisem Ke'elohim? And how was this pitui goyim such a nefila and such a yerid? Be'etzem, it would seem like the root of the problem is in the Nachash himself. The Nachash didn't want to be a Nachash. The Nachash wanted to be human. Chava says, Hanachash Hishiani. Hishiani is a lotion of deception. But Chazal darshan it also in as if it would say with a sin, Hisiani, in the sense of nisuin, a marriage. He wanted Chava. We don't understand what that means. He wanted Chava as a mate. So the Gemara says, Hanochosh hisiani. And in this context, the Gemara says in Soite, Daftes, Kol hanoisein einov, b'masha eino shaloi. Somebody who wants what he doesn't deserve, that he isn't worthy for, that doesn't belong to him. Masha mevakesh einoisnin loi. He doesn't get what he's asking for. Umasha biyodoi, noitle memenu. What he already has is taken away from him. V'chein matzinu b'nochash hakadmoini. Shenosan einov b'masha einoi roi loi, which is Chava. Masha bikesh loi nosnu loi. Umasha biyodoi notlu emen. What he already had, they took away. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ani Omarti, Yehi Melech al Kol Behema V'chaya. I said that the snake should be the king of all behemoths and chayes. V'achshov. However, now that he wanted to be human, he compared himself to Chava. Now, Orurhu Mikola Behemo Mikol Chayes Asoda. He'll be cursed. He'll be less than all the behemoths and all the chayes. Ani Omarti Yahalech B'Koymes Kufa. He should walk erect. Achshov Al Gechoyno Yelech. Ani Omarti Yehi Macholoi Meichel Adam. Achshov Ofor Yoichal. Hu Omar Eheroiges Adam ve'Esa es Chava. Achshov Eva Oshis Beincho Bein Ha'isha Ubein Zaracha Ubein Zara. So the Nachash wasn't content with being a Nachash. He didn't want to be what he is. He wanted to be something else. He wanted to be what he isn't. He compared himself to humans. And that's why Kishebo Nachash Al Chava Hitel Zuhama. This is the poison of wanting to be something and somebody that you aren't. Chava no longer wants to be what she is. Now it's Ve'yisem Ke'Elohim. She wants to be an angel. Just like the Nachash wants to be human, Chava wants to be an angel. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, the Amri Inchi, people say, Gamlo de Ozil miboya lekarne, a camel that wants to acquire horns. Udne, the Havoin le Gzizon mine. The ears that it does have become cut off. In other words, when one wants to be what he isn't, he loses the appreciation for what he is. And therefore, if you don't appreciate what you have, you lost it. Because a person's connection with what he has is based on his appreciation and his understanding. And therefore, the gamle, the ozel, the miboye, le karne, udna the haven le gzizamine. So it's true that veheyisem ke'Elohim, to be like angels, that's the ultimate destination. That's the long-term goal. But we're talking about a process, a long process. We're talking about a journey. The pitui, the seduction of Eisam Kelohim, is about becoming an angel here and now, a quick fix. And therefore, it's about escaping being what you are. It's about escaping from dealing with the challenges of where and what you are. In truth, there's no escape from being human. Adarabah, that's really the Kavana El Yoina. That's the mission. Va'anshe kodesh tiyun li, says the Kotzker Rebbe, menschlich heilig, humanly sacred you shall be. There are no shortcuts. It's the long road that we take in order to perfect ourselves slowly, step by step. That's the Ratzon of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And a person has to value his unique qualities as a human. Only if he values his unique qualities and he accepts himself as what he is, only then can he fulfill the godly mission. When a person doesn't accept himself, he can't commit to the journey. And he loses everything. Mashe yeshloi, noitlin hemenu. Umashe mevakesh ein noistin loy. He's not going to become an angel, but he's going to become subhuman. I mean, the udni, the havoin lei, gzizon minei. Shlomo HaMelech says in Koheles, mi kehechochom umi yoidei apeshe dovar. Chochmas odom to'ir ponov, v'oiz ponov yeshune, who is like a wise man, who knows what things mean. A man's wisdom lights up his face. And the boldness in his face is transformed. What does that mean? The oiz ponov yeshuna, is that positive? Is that negative? So the Medrash says, Mikeh chacham ze adam harishon. The ksiv bei ato choisem tochnis molei chachma. Adam harishon was full of wisdom. Umi yoidei apeshe davar. Who knows the meaning of things? Shepiresh shemois lakoil. He named all the behemoths and all the chayas. The ksiv vayikra adam shemois. That's called a yoidea pesher dover. Chochmas adam to'ir ponov Shlokish b'shem Reb Shimon ben Manasseh, tapuach hakevoi shel Adam Harishon, his heel, it made the light of the sun pale. I mean, Makeh Galgul Chama, Uklastar Bonov like Kolshikin. So his face radiated. So what happened? V'oiz Ponov Yeshune. Zog the Medrash B'shosha Omar. Ha'isha asher nosato imodi. When he said, "Oh, it's the woman that you gave me," he says to the Rebbeinu Shalom, she gave me from the Eitz Hadas. Afa Kodesh Baruch Hu Shina Ponov, changed his face. It lost its beauty. Utarodoi mi Gan Eden, he kicked him out of Gan Eden. So from this medrash, it seems that Adam Harishon lost his place in Gan Eden. He lost his madrega, not because he ate from the Eitz Hadas, but because of the statement, Ha'isha asher nasato imodi. I mean, this goes against Parsha Pshat in Chumash. Yeah, the Parsha Pshat in Chumash is that he lost his madrega because of the Chet Eitz Hadas. It must be that Avad Adam Harishon lost his madrega because of the Chet Eitz Hadas. However, if he wouldn't have said Ha'isha asher nasato imodi, he could have still returned to his original madrega. In other words, this statement was the makeh b'patish. It was the final nail in the coffin of Adam Harishon's madrega. In other words, this is what made that fall final. This brought him to a point of no return. The amira of Ha'isha asher nasato imodi. Now, and that's why b'shosha Omar. So why and how is this statement? Why does this statement finish off the Chet of the Eitz Hadas? Why? So, on the words Ha'isha asher nasato imodi, Rashi says, Kan kofar b'toiva. This was a kfira b'toiva. Because matzah isha, matzah toiv. Hashorui beloy isha, zog the Gemara shorui beloy toiva. The isha takes him out of being loy toiv, heyois adam levadoi. So when he's blaming her and he says it happened because of the isha asher nasato imodi, he's being koifer in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's toiva. And this is really being contrasted with the fact that he gave names to all the behemoths and all the chayas. In other words, he defined everything. He defined everyone, but he doesn't understand the true meaning and significance of the Isha, Asher Nasato Imodi. And that's why he lost his madrega. Why is this the makeh b'patish of the Chet Eitz Hadas? Because why is a person seduced by the idea of Ve'yisem Ke'elohim? Only because he doesn't value his unique qualities. That's the kfira b'toiva, that a person doesn't understand his greatness. He's kaifer b'toivasi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is his neshama shenasata bi tahirahi, and he's kaifer b'toivasi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's not makir in the toiv that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him in creating him as a human being, and therefore he wants to be something and somebody else. So it's true that loy toiv heyoisa adam levadoi. But if you want to be Ke'elohim, if you want to be an angel, you don't need an Ezek Kenegdai. So if he wants to be Ke'elohim, then is the Isha Shenesati Imadi is just a nuisance. And when a person is lacking self-esteem, he can't value relationships. If someone is uncomfortable under his own skin, he isn't capable of having a relationship with a significant other. So that the kfira b'toiva in the statement of Ha'isha asher nasato imodi is the makeh b'patish, the last stage in the Ve'yisem Ke'elohim syndrome. Yeah, this is the zuhama of the Eitz Hadas, noisein einov, b'ma she'einoi sheloi. Wanting to be something else, not accepting yourself, and not being makir, recognizing the taiva of being who you are. Yisrael she'amdu al har Sinai, paska zu hamasa. How's that? Because it doesn't say Yisrael shekiblu es haTorah, Parsha zu Amos, it says Yisrael she'omdu al Har Sinai, and the Abu Draham, in his Pirush to the Haggadah Shel Pesach, says that even before they received the Torah, as soon as they were omdu al Har Sinai, and they were ready to receive the Torah, they were ready to take upon themselves the Torah, Parsha zu Amos, because it's the readiness to be makabel the Torah that removes that zuhama. And that we understand because, the Malachi Ashoris, they said, Mali Yeludisha Beinenu. They said, Mo Enosh, who is frail man, Kisis Kerenu, that you remember him. Uben Adam, a son of mortals, Ki Sifkedenu, that should be accounted for. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu to answer them. And as we say, because that answer has to come from man. If man doesn't understand his unique qualities and why he's worthy, nobody can give that answer for him, even the Rabbeinu Shalom. And therefore the Rabbeinu Shalom, even though he was asked by the Malachim, he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, and even when Moshe Rabbeinu says, Misyore Anoichi, Shema Yisrufuni Behevel Shebepiyam, the Rabbeinu Shalom allows him Echoiz Bekisei HaKavod, but nevertheless, you have to give the answer. And he says, Klum, what does it say in the Torah? Klum lemitzrayim yiradetem, leparo hishtabadatem. Do you have parents? Do you have a Yetzer Hara? So the Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that the divine mission can be carried out only through humans and not through angels. And that's how Klal Yisrael were Amdu al Har Sinai. They were willing to take upon themselves the responsibility to carry out the divine mission because they understood that only they are the ones that can do so, and not the Malachi Ashoris. Their claim to the Torah is based on their understanding that they have what it takes to do it. And Memela, this is the removal of the Zuhama of the Hayisem Ke'elohim. Now they no longer want to be angels. They understand that Dafka humans get the Torah. And therefore, Yisrael Sh'omdu al Har Sinai, Paska Zuhamasa. Paska Zuhamasa. Now, so what happened? They understood this. So how did it come back? Right? Moshe delayed. He was delayed in his descent from the mountain. Yes, so the Ramban is marich that we're not talking over here about Elohim in the sense of God, in the sense of Avodah Zarah. He says they knew that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't Elohim. They knew that he was a representative of the Rabbeinu Shalom. So why, if Moshe Rabbeinu disappeared, would they want to make an Avodah Zarah? So he says, really, they just wanted a leader. They felt that they can create a Egel Hazov, which will be empowered with divine powers, which will have angelic kochis. Aselo Ilanu Elohim, according to the Ramban, means create for us an angel to lead us. So if they were looking just for a leader, why didn't they ask Aaron to become the leader? I mean, he was the second in command as it is. He was a worthy candidate. Moshe Rabbeinu led them. He wasn't a malach. So let Aaron lead them. Why do they now need a malach? So the key is in the pasuk. It says, "Asay lanu Elohim asher yelchu lefaneinu ki zeh Moshe ha'ish lo yadanu mahayalei." Right? The problem wasn't with the individual Moshe. It was with Moshe ha'ish. They were disappointed in human leadership. They figured we can no longer rely on an ish because, today he's here, tomorrow he's gone. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu's disappearance undermined their confidence in human leadership. And therefore, Aseilonu Elohim, they wanted angelic leadership. And with that, they went back to the mistake of Vehayisem Ke Elohim. They fell into the trap of feeling, we're nothings, we're nobodies. By Kriyas Yamsuf, it says, Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'b'Moshe havdoi. What does it mean? They believed in a human, in a boss of Edom. Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'b'Moshe havdoi. Reb Tzadok HaKohen says in the Tzidkes HaTzadik, and I'll read you his lashon because it's really profound. He says, "Kashem shetzorech adam lahamin b'Hashem yizborach." Just like a person needs to believe in Hashem, kach tzorech achakach lahamin ba'atzmai. So he needs afterwards to believe in himself. Right? So loima, what does it mean to believe in myself? Sheyesh laHashem yizborach eisek imoy. V'she'enai toil bottle shebin laila hoyo bin laila ovad ukechaisoy sode shela'acham misasam nevdu ve'einam. Don't feel insignificant. Don't feel inconsequential. Realize that you are eternal. Rak tzarech lahamin ki nafshoy mimekor hachayim yizborach shemay v'Hashem yizborach misanig u'mishta'ashei bo k'shoiser etzoyne. V'zeh pirush, says Reb Tzadok, this is the meaning of the pasuk, Vayaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe havdi. Pirush, Moshe, who's Moshe? Moshe is not the individual Moshe. Ratzalei meklal shishim riboy nafshois Yisrael. So believing in Moshe means believing in ourselves, because Moshe is just the klolos, incorporates, embodies, personifies the entire Klal Yisrael. So believing in Moshe means believing in ourselves. So this was the preparation for the Kabbalah Satorah, the understanding that we are significant. But when they lost their trust, they lost their confidence in them Moshe Ha'ish, and they wanted Asei Lonu Elohim, make us an angel, they went back to the Zuhama of the Heyisem Ke'Elohim. After the Chet HaEgel, it says, Ki loy ela bekirbecho, ki am k'shei oiref ato, pen acholcha baderech. So so it says, Vayishmahom, esadova haraze, vayisabolu. They became grief-stricken. Veloy shosu ish ed yoy olav. No one donned his jewelry. Not clear what jewelry we're talking about, but it says, Loy shosu ish ed yoy olav. Nobody donned his jewelry. Now, the next pasuk says, "Vayisnatzlu b'nei Yisrael es ed yom mehar chorev." I mean, the next pasuk really says no. The next pasuk says, "Vayoyim Hashem al Moshe emer el b'nei Yisrael am ksheyoref oto, etc." Va'ata hoyreid ed yichami alecha. Now remove your jewelry from yourself. They didn't put it on. Why would the pasuk say to take it off? And the next pasuk says, "Vayisnatzlu b'nei Yisrael es ed yom mehar chorev." That the Bnei Yisrael was stripped of the jewelry from Har Chorev. So the question is, the first pasuk says, "V'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav." So what are the next psukim talking about? Chazal say that this jewelry is the crowns that we received when we said Nasa v'nishma. So what does it mean, "V'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav"? I mean, the crowns, the spiritual crowns that we received for Nasa v'nishma doesn't seem like something that you have to put on. So what does it mean, v'loy shosu ish ed vayisabolu v'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav? So it's brought from the Chayzim Ulablim that he says that the pasuk, the first pasuk that says vayisabolu, they became grief-stricken. V'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav should be understood in the sense of v'loy shos liboy gam lezois. It says by Paroi, he didn't pay attention. He didn't take it to heart. V'loy shos liboy gam lezois. He didn't take to heart the moifis, the ois. And so also over here it means v'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav means the people didn't take to heart that they still have the ed yoy olav. They went into such an avel. They went into such mourning after they realized what they messed up with the Chet HaEgel, that they no longer realize that they still have the crowns of Matan Torah. V'loy shosu ish ed yoy olav. Says the Chayzim Ulablim, if they would have been conscious of the fact that they still have those crowns. They could have come back to the original Madrege. They could have corrected the Chet HaEgel. What happened was they didn't realize. They thought they lost it all. Because they thought they lost it all, they actually lost it all. Because if you don't know what you have, if you don't know that you're carrying a crown, you lose it. And that's the and that's the Vayisnatzlu es edyo mehar chorid. So you see that it's the same story. The Chet HaEgel was really the lack of understanding that you don't need a say lonu Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu, that a human can lead us, because vayaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdoi, that we have the divine spark and we have the potential to carry out HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon, and we have an eternal part to ourselves. And Memela, when the Chet HaEgel, which took us back to the Hayisem Ke'Elohim of the Chet Eitz Hadas, brought back the Zuamo. If we would have still realized after the Chet HaEgel that we still have those crowns, we would have been Shosu Ish Ed Yoyolav. We could have come back, but we didn't realize that we have those crowns. It was V'loi Shosu Ish Ed Yoyolav. And Memela, we fell into the trap of not recognizing our greatness and our abilities. Now, according to Rashi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu about the Mishkan after the Chet HaEgel. According to the Ramban, Moshe Rabbeinu taught Klal Yisrael after the Chet HaEgel, because the Mishkan is really an antidote to the Chet HaEgel. In the Mishkan, we learn that closeness to Hashem is not accomplished by escaping ourselves. The Vashachanti is b'soich chom, b'soich kol echad ve'echad, and it's achieved through small sacrifices, daily sacrifices. In the Mishkan, we learn that failure is part of a spiritual life. It needs to be, and it can be dealt with. Mistakes can be corrected. For every shgogo, there's a carbon. What's the Mishkan about? The Shechanti B'Soicham is having the ability to rise after a fall. Every time a Yid makes a mistake, he comes to the Mishkan and he makes a sacrifice. And that's how he maintains and develops a relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not in the realm of Ve'yisem Ke'Elohim. It's not in the realm of Asei Lanu Elohim, but rather it's in the real me and you, the Anshe Kodesh, Tiyu and Li. It's Loyo Lecha Hamalacha Ligmor, the Ein Ato Ben Choyrin Li Potimim. And Rashi says in the beginning of Parshas Vayakel, Mishkan Ha'edus. Why is it called Mishkan Ha'edus? It's an Edus Li Yisro, Shemach Elohem Al Chet HaEgel. It's a witness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Moichel on the Chet HaEgel. You know, in Edus, we have Edim Livruri and Edim L'Kiyumi. I say the Mishkan is Edus L'Kiyumi. That the Edus L'Kiyumi, just like Edus of Kiddushin, the Edim are part of what makes the Kiddushin become Kiddushin. So also the Mishkan is an Edus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives us for the Chet HaEgel, but it's Edus L'Kiyumi. In other words, the Avodas HaMishkan is part of what is part of the therapy. That heals us. That heals us from the Hayisem Ke'Elohim disorder, right? That's the Edus L'Kiyumi Shemocha Lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Chet HaEgel. Okay, Rabbi.